from the fire on my legs. We sat down on the sofa together and I told Anthea about our ride along the bridle path and how wonderful it was riding through the village, hearing our horses' hooves on the cobblestones. I told her how I had felt so rural and stylish, as though I'd lived there all of my life. I mentioned that we stopped off at Jane's cottage for 5 minutes and had a little drink. Anthea looked at me with a knowing look. I began to go red. "And what did you two get up to in there?" she asked. "Nothing," I smiled. "Jane showed me the garden. We weren't either very long." My blushes were spared when Anthea began telling me about her visit to Major Rawlins. The Major was in his early 60s. His wife had died and his children were working in London. There he was, living in an Elizabethan manor house. Just the Major and his elderly mother. He was a proud ex-soldier, having served in Aden and Cyprus during the 50s and 60s. "It was fascinating," said Anthea. "He showed me round the house and the estate. He knew all about the history and the family who lived there in Elizabethan times and their links with Queen Elizabeth and the royal court. I told him I had a girlfriend staying with me," continued Anthea. "And he said I should have brought you along with me. He would have loved to meet you. I think he was a bit of a ladies' man in his time," said Anthea. "Once or twice I had the feeling that he was undressing me in his mind. The old goat, he showed me a 17th century portrait of a lady in a pink silk dress, and as he was telling me all about it, he put his hand around my waist. I was glad that his 85-year-old mother was there. Otherwise God only knows what might have happened." As I left, continued Anthea, "he said I had an open invitation to call round whenever I liked." "It was a fascinating visit," said Anthea. "And I'll probably go again. But next time I'll take Grant along to keep the old goat at bay." "Poor Anthea," I said, stroking her cheek. "You're so beautiful and sexy. Everyone's trying to get inside your panties, including you," said Anthea, and she kissed me so tenderly. We lay back on the soft cushions. I felt her hand on my breast. She brought her leg up over my lap. I just lay back and let her have her wicked way with me. The logs were burning in the hearth. We sat there in the firelight glow, Anthea making love to me. Could life get any sweeter than this? I wondered to myself, as I felt Anthea's hand go inside my bra. 10. Anthea married the disc jockey, Radio 1 disc jockey. Anthea looked stunning in her red satin Janet Ridger underwear with its elaborate lace decoration. "If only Major Rawlins had known what you had on under that black dress," I said. "Things forbidden are best kept hidden," said Anthea somewhat cryptically. We sat with our backs to the sofa. I looked at Anthea in the soft light from the fire. Her lovely blonde hair, her graceful neck, her sexy body in the Janet Ridger underwear. I couldn't believe how lucky I was. I took off my bra and Anthea caressed my buxom breasts. My nipples dilated under the touch of her fingers. She suckled each nipple in turn. I just sat there in sweet ecstasy. It was a wonderful moment. I felt so content and fulfilled. I rubbed my hand up and down Anthea's back as she suckled my breasts and erect nipples. It was so erotic. It was a dream. We stretched out on the carpet and kissed while Anthea's hand fondled my breast. I took off her bra and suckled her breasts while she lay flat on the carpet. We climbed onto the sofa and lay in each other's arms chatting about this and that. Anthea suddenly became wistful and sentimental. She told me about her childhood in the village of Norton on the moors. She remembered the very first time she went on stage. It was the school play, Hansel and Gretel, and she was aged 8 years old. At the age of 11 she had her first speaking part, as Scheherazade in the Arabian Nights. She loved being on stage, being the center of attention. She loved the stage so much she joined the local amateur dramatics and played lead in a big production of The Sound of Music. I think Anthea enjoyed reminiscing about her childhood in Norton. a village in the Midlands where she was born. When she got to know Grant Bovey, she was surprised to learn that he was originally from Nottingham. He was born only 40 miles away from Anthea's village of Norton. 11. We walked along the hallway wearing just stockings, suspender belt and knickers. We climbed the wide staircase and went into Anthea's bedroom. We sat at the dressing table and made ourselves up as if we were going out for the evening. There we were sat in the mirror, our naked boobs on display, applying lipstick and eyeliner and talking about makeup. That's one thing we both have in common. A love of makeup. It's like a therapy. I love it. Anthea, of course, had spent a lifetime in makeup, preparing for each TV appearance. Naturally, she had picked up a lot of tips and makeup secrets along the way. When she was fully made up, she looked incredibly glamorous. I kissed her. Oh, the taste of her lipstick. She was so sexy. I rubbed my hand up and down her bare back. The feel of her soft, smooth skin. Her sweet kisses. Her hand fondling my boobs. I was in ecstasy. I kissed her neck and caught a glimpse of us in the dressing table mirror. What an erotic picture. Anthea sitting there. Her bare boobs. Her graceful neck. With her hand on my boobs. We climbed into the big double bed. I wondered what Grant would have thought if he could see me in his bed, making love to his wife. We snuggled down under the sheets. We were warm and content. So happy to be in bed together. Anthea smiled at me as my hand explored her body. She was nearly 15 years older than me. But that didn't seem to matter. I think Anthea enjoyed being in bed with a younger woman. My young, nubile body. My firm, voluptuous breasts. For my part, I was happy to have my darling Anthea in my arms. She had been my idol for so long. Someone I looked up to. I considered her. In and out. She sighed and rolled her head on the pillow. I felt so proud that my loving touch could give her such sweet joy. I went down in the bed and buried my face in her lovely pussy. I licked her clit. I could, she said. We kissed so lovingly. A special kiss. One woman to another. We were so relaxed and at peace with each other. I felt at that moment that we were friends for life. I thought of the long years of friendship and love ahead. Of letters, phone calls, visits, emails. I just knew our friendship would never end. 12. Grant was due back from Portugal late on Thursday night and Anthea was going to the airport to pick him up. She said, why not stay? Go with her to the airport to meet Grant, then go back on Friday morning. I declined this offer. Perhaps another time I could meet Grant. Perhaps at a party or some country event. I am really quite shy. And the thought of meeting him made me nervous. For lunch on Thursday we had a light salad and then decided to have a walk into the village. We followed the same bridle path that Jane and I rode along just 2 days before. There were ancient oak trees lining the bridle path, their leaves yellow and gold in the October sunshine. The air was cool and a wind in the treetops sent the leaves flying high in the air and out across the fields, now bare after the harvest. How I envied Anthea living in such beautiful, idyllic countryside. She could enjoy the seasons. Spring, summer, autumn and winter. She could watch the subtle changes of nature and breathe the fresh country air. While I was living in London, surrounded by concrete and traffic pollution. The only subtle changes I saw were graffiti and spray paint on the concrete walls of the shopping centre. We stopped at a farm gate and Anthea pointed out some old buildings in the distance. That used to be a water mill in Victorian times, she said. The old mill wheel is still there. And the machinery. But it's all broken and neglected. Anthea leaned on a wooden gate admiring the view of the fields. A distant stream. And a line of willow trees. She was wearing a brown woolen coat, a knee-length woolen skirt and brown leather boots. The wind blew her blonde hair from her face. She looked so beautiful in the October sunshine. Her blue eyes, her clear complexion, her classic beauty. This was our last day together. Then I'd have to return to my little flat in Camden. I thought of Anthea's house, Babin's Grange, with its 40 acres. Surely she could build a little cottage in a corner somewhere. For little me, I could live there quite happily as a caretaker gardener or something. Anthea could come and visit me any time. We could name it Love Cottage, or Lover's Rest. I would take it in the way. I'd keep myself to myself. But I'd always be there for my darling Anthea, day or night. These thoughts went through my mind. It was nice to dream. We reached the village and called in a charity shop. We passed half an hour in the Ridley looking at the bric-a-brac and the books that lined the shelves. At 3:30 we passed Jane's cottage and luckily, she was at home. She appeared on the doorstep and called us in for a cup of tea. That upper-class Penelope Keith voice now so familiar to me. We sat in her small lounge that looks out onto the village street. Anthea sat on the sofa where Jane and I had kissed so passionately just 2 days before. It was nice to see Jane and Anthea together. They were such firm friends. Also I could see how much Jane valued Anthea's friendship. In fact, Jane was now my friend too. We were all friends together. Anthea enjoyed our short visit to the lovely Jane. She was happy. And I was happy that Anthea was happy. It was after the visit, walking home along the bridle path, that I began to think of the three of us in Jane's cottage. What if we had stripped off and had a threesome in Jane's bedroom? Just the thought of it was quite delicious. We enjoyed our leisurely stroll back to Babin's Grange through the autumn countryside. The wind dropped and an October sun turned the fields and woodland to gold. It was the perfect end to my week in Dunsfold. Inexorably, the hands of the clock approached 5 o'clock. The appointed time of my departure. I put my suitcase in the car and prepared to make my leave. Anthea didn't want me to go. She was still trying to persuade me to go to the airport and meet Grant. It was a nice idea. I wavered once or twice. But no. I thought that might be overstaying my welcome. I've had a fabulous 4 days with you, my darling, I said to Anthea as we stood in the driveway. Oh Jess, said Anthea, you don't know how much I've enjoyed having you here. You must come again. And soon, my darling. She put her arms around me and we kissed. I was in tears. I really didn't want to leave. Anthea was in tears also. We hugged and kissed as her golden retrievers, Gina and Becky, ran around and out onto the field. I drove along the drive and reached the scrollwork gates. I stopped the car and got out. I looked back. My darling Anthea was still there outside Babin's Grange, waving at me. Tears were flowing down my cheeks as I blew her a kiss and waved back at my sweet darling. I got back into the car and drove out into the leafy lanes of Surrey. During my drive back to London, I thought back to my 4-day visit to Dunsfold, the horse riding, the sweet nights of love, and my new friendship with Jane Beaumont. Jane was so special. She had given me an open invitation to call on her whenever I liked. How I had enjoyed those fine, sunny autumn days and the beautiful Surrey countryside. Oh, if only it was Monday and I could relive it all over again. I knew that by the time I arrived home there'd still be time to decorate the bedroom of my flat, or at least make a start. I felt secure with Anthea. I knew she treasured my friendship and the sweet loving we shared. I knew that I would soon be returning to Babin's Grange and my darling Anthea, my dearest, sweetest love. The end.